Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 8th episode of the Startup Boston podcast, where I interview entrepreneurs, investors, and influencers in the Boston startup community to uncover actionable advice and stories from their experiences. In today's episode, I interview Shea Coakley, co-founder and CEO of Leanbox, the fresh food kiosk for businesses. In this episode, Shea talks about their pivot from a restaurant to a healthy food services business, designing a business so that you can excel, and the role technology plays to ensure the customer's Leanbox is always stocked. As always, you can find links to everything mentioned in the show notes, which can be found at startupbostonpodcast.com. Be sure to stay tuned at the end of the episode for a giveaway announcement. Enjoy the episode. Shea, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
Thank you. Start by telling us a little bit about your background, who you are.
Sure. So Shea Coakley, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Leanbox. And Leanbox, to use a term that probably everybody that listens to this podcast is going to throw up in their mouth. We are a disruptive innovation in the corporate food service space. So we are taking on the behemoths of Sodexo, Aramark, and Compass Group, and we have developed an innovative grab-and-go food service for offices that are not having the ability to build out a cafeteria, but want to enhance their food culture with healthy and fresh food.
So how did you get to the idea of Leanbox?
Yeah, so the traditional PR story is that, which has half truths, is that I was sitting at my old job and working at 10 Post Office Square, had a difficult time getting access to healthy, fresh food. The fib often is that we then, myself and my business partner just instantly came up with what Leanbox is today, which I wish it were that cut and dry, but we're far enough along that I can share the secret sauce that we actually started off sort of like a hammer looking for a nail. We started off solving the problem just like a lot of people solve the problem. So the problem being access to healthy food, we built a brick and mortar restaurant, actually. So we went out, we spent $800,000 building out a full restaurant. It was called Leanworks. It was in West Roxbury. Leanbox was literally like just a side project. It's just so funny. I mean, I'm sure this is a pretty common story in the startup world. The pivot term is used all the time now, and we were a major pivot. We realized a couple things early on. We realized, one, our expertise was not in running a quick service restaurant. We realized that pretty quickly, but more importantly, we realized we had lightning in a bottle with this Leanbox concept, which was sort of unattended retail. At that time, it was really like vending machine 3.0. We realized we had something there, and we did just a hard pivot, and some sort of advantageous scenarios led to a quick exit out of the restaurant concept and into what we're doing today. So it started off as a brick and mortar restaurant, and the learning there was interesting, and it's very fitting to what we do today, which was that on a Saturday afternoon, if you're at a strip mall, you are okay with getting, and when I say you, I mean like we, really, I fit into this category as well. You're okay with getting Five Guys or Chipotle, like a big juicy burger, and then like let's worry about health food again on Monday. I mean, at least that's how I am, and I think that's what most people are. So
that's how I am.
Yeah. So I mean, the reality was we knew we had to sort of like hit the problem at its source, which is like, what are people eating Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, or, really 8 to 6, 7 to 7. And that's when we dove first into this Leanbox concept. So the evolution was brick and mortar restaurant to, reinventing the vending machine. So to be able to have a fresh food kiosk that can do anything from a New England creamery yogurt to a miso glazed salmon out of a box, to where we are today, which is blending technology and food service, and basically being a one throat to choke, innovative corporate food service for companies between 30 and, I'll say 30 and 1,000 people, but we work with the Logmeans of the world, the Rulalas, the Fidelities, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
But really our meat of the bat is like that 150 person office that wants a fresh food service, a healthy food service, but just doesn't have the space or money or whatever to build out a huge cafeteria.
How did you come to learn that the restaurant wasn't for you and that you were then going to have to shift to the Leanbox model?
I mean, there's a couple things, right? So I think the restaurant was doing fine. The detail, we had this really interesting set of circumstances that our lease with this multi-billion-dollar landlord they had a letter of credit that they lost. It's this really weird story that I won't get into crazy detail, but we had an opportunity to get out. We would probably still be running the restaurant if it weren't for that set of circumstances. So it's funny how things fall into place.
Yeah.
But I mean, from a hard-coded, like what made us realize, I think it was more of a push towards what we're doing than a pull away from what we were doing. Mm-hmm. But I would say that, like, if I were to have any advice for anyone, look, and I'm still learning everything, right? I'm in like the middle, right? I have mentors and mentees, but my thought for anyone who's like getting into the startup world is like, you got to find something that people always talk about, like do something you're passionate about, right? And we're passionate about food here, but I think potentially more importantly, it's like you got to design a business where you can excel and where your skill set is differentiating. I will just say that, like, running a restaurant and myself and my business partner, it just like wasn't where our skill set excelled. Mm-hmm. It's so fitting that, like, my thought to when we're thinking about like how do we get more people in the door, how do we increase ticket sizes, how do we get more daily visitors, like I'm like out in the street like trying to like sell corporations on like coming to our brick and mortar restaurant. It's like it was just so clear to me and my business partner that it's like we want to be in a different kind of business. Like it just my brain works like to go out and get business and to go out and sell and to that kind of thing. And it's just different. It's just mm-hmm. different than what happens in a restaurant.
When you're at the restaurant, did you feel like you were just like another restaurant, whereas with Leanbox you felt like you were really doing something different?
I'll be honest. I mean, it's funny. I often think about this. Like sometimes when I'm not near a Leanbox, which oddly enough, we're like the cobbler's kid with no shoes. Like we find that we're out in the field, visiting with potential clients, and we don't have access to food. It is funny sometimes, but I often think in those scenarios that I wish Leanworks was around and that I could stop in there. So I'm proud of what we did in the restaurant space. I think we were differentiating ourselves in there, but it's just. Mm-hmm. I think the big thing that we realized is like, there's people doing cool things in quick service, right? Like I'm a big fan of like Sweet Green. I can't wait to try Dig In that just opened up down the street. Like there's so much cool stuff going on in that space. Where there's not cool stuff going on is corporate food service. Like, we just launched a huge coffee program. They're a perfect example. Like traditional office coffee is a last resort. It's like the Keurigs or the Flavia, and you suck it down just to get some caffeine. We're in a space to get a little bit controversial. I mean, like if idiots could fly, it would be an airport. Like it's not a space that's innovating like the traditional tech that you see in Boston and the startups that are in these space like biotech and pharma. Like you're just not in that world, right? And everybody knows that. Like, everybody that works in a corporate office knows that like the vending machine that has M&Ms and, granola bars in it, it's just no one's innovating there. So I think that's where it became really, really exciting for us to look at this space that has like wide open territory for innovation. Know we could do better. Know we could understand that audience. And it's just a fun space to play in because there's so much to do there,
Mm-hmm. Was there ever a moment when you thought, I think we're onto something here?
Yeah. I mean, I've had a few of those moments. So we had one of our early clients was a law firm that we went, so one of our first 3 clients was a law firm. And I remember at this very specific moment of being on site where we had sent out an email to the office. There were some posters up. and it was like launch day, and I was going to be on site to show people how to use the Leanbox and to sample some food and stuff like that. And keep in mind, like, so the bulk of our service has a 3x3 footprint. It goes in the corner of a break room. It's not a big, bulky cafeteria. We had, this particular law firm has 800 associates or something like that. We had line that was curling all the way back to the elevator. And I just remember like looking at my business partner at that point, like, wow, like this is, and it, it was like 11 o'clock. People weren't really eating till noon.
Yeah.
And I just remember that for me, that was an interesting moment. There's been a couple along the way, but that one, I just felt like we were disrupting, a great space. I mean, the little ones along the way that happen all the time are like just visiting with clients, and all you have to do, it's almost like being a shrink. Like all you have to do is just ask an open-ended question with a prospect that we have for Leanbox. Like, tell me about your food service, like what's working and what's not. And the HR managers or office managers or facilities managers that are working on this, it's like there's so many pain points there. So I think that continues to be the case for us, where it's just like there's so much pain in running a healthy corporate food program. It's expensive, it's hard to run, all that kind of stuff. And I think along the way, those like micro moments have been really clear to me that like this is a great space.
Yeah, that must have been a really good feeling to see that line
awesome.
Stretching out. Yeah,
very cool. Yeah.
So Leanbox is the name of the company. It's also the name of one of your products, right?
Yeah.
And you offer a lot of other services as well, right?
Yeah. So what happened was originally so Leanbox, as you said, it's sort of like our flagship product. It's our main differentiator. It's a fresh food kiosk. Sometimes we refer to it as a high-tech refrigerator. And this gives the employee the ability to go up from their desk. Their stomach starts to growl at 1 o'clock. They forgot to grab lunch. They just came from a meeting. And they go up to the kiosk. They use a Leanbox app or swipe a debit or credit card. Then they have access to, salads, soups, wraps. We do a lot of local product like Newgrounds Food, which I think you guys are interviewing or have interviewed. Yeah. Jubilee Juice, which is another great local product. So someone would have the ability to grab a Jubilee pressed juice and, a chicken Caesar wrap and go back to their desk, and the whole thing happens in, 3 minutes. That will always remain core to our business. Like that is what we do. That's what we concentrate a lot of our tech on. But to your point about the other services, what we realized is that we were going into these offices, and the office managers and HR managers, there was like a scope creep that was going on. So they'd say, hey, you're coming here every other day. In some instances, we're going every day. And they would say like, look, can you bring fruit? Like we have a fruit vendor, but we'd love to consolidate that. Or we have a pain point there or whatever. Yeah. So when we first started, it was very much like, we pushed it away. We said, that's not what we do. We're Leanbox. We are a fresh food kiosk. Right. And I forget where I read it, but I remember hearing something like when you hear 3 buying signals from someone about a product that's not exactly what you do, then listen to it. When it gets to 5, then like really concentrate on that. Right. So, I mean, it happened way more than that. So we started to realize, all right, we're doing the toughest part of this business. Why not? Well, let's lean into this, right? So that's when we started sort of shifting, and it was sort of like the last, I don't want to call it a pivot, but I'll call it a shift or an expansion, where we started going into offices and saying, okay, tell me everything you do for food service. Like, let's just talk it all out. Like, are you doing catering? Are you doing hot coffee? Do you do kegerators of cold brew coffee? Let it rip on all that stuff. And we're going to develop a program that's going to be less expensive, easier to run, and better. By virtue, we work sort of an interesting business model in which we enter into a monthly agreement with the end customer, or sorry, not the end customer. We enter into a monthly agreement with the company, mm-hmm. and then the employees are actually checking out food at cost, so 30 to 40% less than traditional retail. It's kind of an interesting model, but it allows for us to add on things like hot coffee or fruit or water services at a fraction of the cost, because our model comes out of that monthly fee. So it's kind of an interesting symbiotic relationship.
Okay. So the company pays you a monthly fee, and then the end user then buys the food at cost from the machines?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, one of these things that we sort of like fell into solving a problem. And I think the problem of healthy food, it's sort of, it's convenience, which it's pretty obvious how we're solving that. It's like 10 feet away from someone's cubicle. Yeah. It's taste, in which we do a lot in that department, including just working with great producers and scraping the earth for cool, interesting, unique, new products. So that's solvable. But the price thing, which is the third and maybe even one of the most important components of why people don't eat healthy, was a little bit trickier to solve. So, a pressed juice that someone walks by at Whole Foods, that's $7.50. Like, people look at that and they're like, I'm not, $7.50 for a juice. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So I think we found an interesting way to solve for that problem, which is basically we go to the employer and we say, you just give us a set monthly fee. That set monthly fee is really like where our profit is and what our business model is contingent upon. And then when someone goes to check out, let's say a yogurt, New England creamer yogurt that might be $2.99 somewhere or something like that they're getting out of the Leanbox at 95 cents, then it becomes really appealing. Or a pressed juice that should be $7.50 that they're getting for $3.25.
Yeah.
So it sort of takes that last piece of why people aren't eating healthy, and it solves for that at the office. It's interesting in that the employer kicks in a little bit of money, which they're happy to do because everybody's concentrated on recruiting and retention. Everybody wants to increase office culture. So they're happy to do that. We're happy because we have sort of like it helps our business model. We know we have a set amount coming in the door. And then the employee's psyched because, they're spending 40% less than they would at a traditional retail. So I don't know. We've sort of cracked the code in a little bit of a way. I think everybody wins,
So if consumers want to eat healthier, how come companies primarily go for that junk food vending machine route? Why is it just awareness for, services like yours? I think that's
part of it. I mean, I alluded to this earlier, but there's just not a lot of innovation going on in this space. So yeah, I mean, I think we're still in a place, we've established ourselves. We have a brand that's out there, but I think if you were to knock on the door of like your average company in Burlington, Massachusetts, and you were to ask them to list out their options for fresh, healthy food, like, we wouldn't come up probably. We're probably still, we're still new enough that's the case. So I think, it's definitely exposure. It's that there hasn't been a business model in the market that does this. I will say that if you're a big company, you can get taken care of, right? So if you have 3,000 people on an individual campus, like, there's options for you. Like Sodexo, Aramark, Compass Group, like, they're going to bend over backwards to put together like a cool, fresh food service program for you. There's flaws there too. It shuts down at 2:00 in the afternoon, and sometimes it's a little pricey, all that kind of stuff. But I would say for the 150, 200 person office that is looking to implement a fresh food program, there's just not a lot there, So, I mean, the more forward thinking companies they're really just piecing these things together. So maybe they'll get fruit from Peapod, Stop and Shop's delivery, and they'll get catering twice a week. And they'll sometimes even send an office manager to go to BJ's to pick up a ton of snacks. So people know that it's a problem. It's just, I think that, to date, people don't know that there's a way to solve it,
What are some examples of the food that can be found in the Leanbox?
Yeah. So, I mean, about 40% of our traffic comes from like a quick, healthy grab and go lunch. So that can be a salad or a wrap or a soup. We do a lot of salads, grab and go salads, that kind of stuff. So that's about 40%. Then, you have sort of your meals, which are like nice, healthy entree meals, the same kind of stuff you'd see at like a Whole Foods grab and go section. Mm-hmm. We do some really cool stuff in the beverage section. So, you're not going to find Sprite and, Diet Coke in our fridge, but you're going to find Jubilee and Suja juice. You're going to find Stumptown cold brew coffee, just interesting, unique beverages, similar to like going to a Whole Foods aisle and seeing all the really cool, interesting stuff there. And then on the snack front, that's where we get really interesting. So, I mean, my favorite one is the one I referenced earlier. I love Newgrounds Food. A couple Northeastern students that made an edible coffee bar, and I love the local guys. Like anything local, we're psyched to be working with. Yeah, it's delicious. Our clients love that. It's a cool story. It's a unique product, and our snack, that's like a perfect archetype for our snack. Like local, has a little bit of a twist on it. Maybe, you certainly wouldn't see it at a convenience store or a Stop and Shop, but you might not even see it at a Whole Foods shelf. On the sweet side, we're a healthy concept, but like on the sweet side, you might find something like a Taza chocolate or something in that realm. Again, you wouldn't find a Snickers or a Three Musketeers, but you might find some other cool sweets. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of, I would say one of the things that surprised us, 40%, it might even be a little bit high on the lunch. One of the things that surprised us is that it's really like a 12-hour a day sort of checkout. So we see people checking stuff out at 3:00 in the afternoon, like maybe like a fruit cup or carrots and hummus, like that kind of stuff. And we see people checking stuff out at 5:30 it seems like they're either burning the midnight oil or they're bringing it home. Yeah. So I used to joke, I have a 10-month-old daughter at home, and I used to joke when it was my turn to cook, like we would trade off cooking, and when it was my turn to cook, I'd grab 2 Leanbox meals and like flip them over on a skillet and call it a night. So, yeah.
What are some specific examples of the different meals that are offered?
So one of my favorites and one of the Leanbox favorites, we have a chicken tikka masala. That is super, super popular. It's on a bed of whole grain rice. It's out of this world. Very, very delicious. So that's a typical one. We have a line of Mexican. We have a line of Korean barbecue. So it really spans. We rotate a lot of things seasonally. So we have a line called Summer Fresh right now that are just sort of like fresh, healthy pastas that are really good. One of my favorite, more recent ones is a company called Chow Mein. It's quickly becoming one of our more popular dishes, and it's Maine, M-A-I-N-E. So it's a husband-wife combo that are unbelievable chefs that wanted to get their product out to a broader audience, and they make lo mein and dishes of that nature. And we just started carrying them about a month ago, and it's doing really, really well. Like, super cool, super local product, and that's one I'm really psyched about.
So these meals are all fresh, right? They're not frozen?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So I'd say about, roughly 60-70% of what you'd find in a Leanbox, you can just grab and eat. So whether that's like a cold pasta salad or a regular salad or a wrap or something of that nature, juice, whatever, you can grab that and just eat it. The other 30-35% are things that you would toss in the microwave. But yeah, they're all fresh. They are coming out of our docks every single morning. One of the things that's sort of unique about our process, like I think at first glance, people could see what we do and say like it's an upgraded vending machine. But I look at it more as like a condensed cafeteria in the way our business model runs. So, at any given site, the longest it would go would be every other day. With us checking in on it, rotating inventory, etc. Okay. So it's a really hands-on concept, and the reason for that is like our main differentiator outside of tech and brand and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the number one differentiator is the freshness of the food.
So how do you, if they're all fresh, right, not frozen, how do you plan on what to put in order to reduce the food waste?
Yeah, it's a tough part. I mean, it takes up a lot of our sort of brain power, right? So, and it's a lot of there's a lot of different sort of small pieces of IP that are going on with the business, and knowing what to put where and when is a big part of that. So, I will say each Leanbox has sort of like a brain of the system that's run off of a tablet that feeds information back to our headquarters. That information lets us know, okay, on a a day-to-day basis or even week-to-week basis, it lets us know, okay, it's Tuesday and it just snowed and the machine got raided because no one felt like going outside. Our headquarters knows that and knows how to restock the machine on the next delivery. So we get pinged like this inventory is low and all that stuff is analyzed on a regular basis. More importantly, it lets us know that, okay, the Log Me In fridge really likes cold brew coffee, but doesn't like pressed juices. And the Rue La La fridge, really likes fruit cups, but doesn't like tabbouleh or whatever, So what we're able to do is like each Leanbox is different. And we know what that particular site really wants to be eating over the course of time. It becomes, their Leanbox. We get really good at knowing what needs to go where, when. We also have the ability to rotate from one Leanbox to another if a particular item isn't working. And then as a last resort, we work with Love and Spoonfuls, which is a really cool local organization that does food rescue. So they pick up anything that, it is created ahead of time. And there's bound to be some potential waste. So we're really proud of the partnership we have with Love and Spoonfuls to be able to put that into the hands of people that need it.
Oh, nice. So the food doesn't end up going to waste.
Correct.
It doesn't. Okay.
Yeah, and that was always a desire of ours. I'll be honest, it was interesting how difficult it was to find a way to repurpose that food. It was actually a little bit of a challenge, but I'm glad we've worked our way through it because, as I said, in creating the food ahead of time, packaging it ahead of time, we can get really good at minimizing waste, but we're never going to completely eliminate it. Yeah. Huge fan of Love and Spoonfuls, everything they stand for, everything they do. We donate food to them and it ends up in the right hands, which is great.
How do you go about discovering new food to put in the Leanbox?
So that's a really fun part of the job, I'd say. A requirement for working at Leanbox is that you have to be a foodie. And I'm going to put an asterisk there and say that I don't mean that you have to be the most discerning person to eat at Duave across the street from where we're sitting right now. I don't mean that you have to know the exact, Cabernet that's supposed to go with your steak at Grill 23. What I mean is like we want employees here that get a kick out of walking down the Whole Foods aisle and seeing a juice or a coconut water or a whatever that they've never seen before. We have a Slack channel internally that's just hashtag food scouting. So we get things that come from local food markets, from foodie events around town, sometimes from a Whole Foods or a natural food store. We're conglomerating all that. And obviously, like, we're getting big enough now where people reach out to us proactively, like, hey, I got this new product, would love to get it on your shelves. And then we have a democratic process internally with a food committee. So that food committee meets every couple of weeks, taste tests, votes on what gets rotated in. There's actually a cool thing where like people have like red and green paddles, so it can be like really democratized. And it's cool. I mean, that's like as I said, everybody here is a foodie in some way, shape, and form. And I think everybody wants to be involved in that here. And it's a fun part of our job. One of the things I always tell people is like, if I ever hit like a really rough patch, I'm just going to say I own a food company because people will literally just ship you pallets of stuff to taste. So, I mean, we always joke about how we're all going to gain weight working for a health food company. Cause I mean, if you just walk over this office,
taste tests and stuff.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, it's healthy to eat, kale chips, but if you try 8 different packages in one sitting, it starts to add up. But honestly, I mean, to answer your question, the food scouting, I think we all get a huge kick out of that, and it's fun, and I think we want to make Leanbox a portal of discovery for the people that are using it. And I think like our enthusiasm for that process bleeds into the end product.
So if I'm an end user of the company, I'm buying it. I work at the company that has it.
Mm-hmm.
Do I get a say in what goes in it?
Yeah. So before we launch a Leanbox, there is a sort of voting and survey system. So the survey lets us know where a company stands between, I like to call it like the bologna sandwich to kale chip scale, right?
Okay.
So you might have I'll say like a manufacturing firm that is on the North Shore that is, maybe used to eating pizza and steak and cheese. And we're not going to give them kale chips and pressed juices. You might have a consulting firm in Kendall Square that's used to eating kale chips and pressed juices, and we want to continue to sort of push that envelope. The goal is to inch people towards health. So that survey lets us know where people fit on that scale. Then we actually allow people to vote for a particular product that will be in their Leanbox pre-launch. So they'll be able to log on either using the app or a link that's sent out to say like, oh, I would really love that, granola bar. I would really love that organic entree meal. And then we adjust over time, like I was saying before. So, week 3, week 4, we start to adjust inventory to, fit to what's actually working. But there's a lot we're doing from a tech standpoint to continue to work that out, which, like by way of example, we have a new feature that's coming out that allows people to do like Uber style 5-star rating system after they check something out. So we'll be able to tell like, okay, they ate that chicken Caesar wrap and they gave that a 4.5 stars. Like that seems like it's probably a pretty good fit. Like let's continue to put that in there. And then if we have a product that's getting, 2 and 3 stars, we know it's probably time to rotate that out.
Do you find that the companies who have the Leanbox have found that their employees are more productive throughout the day?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we know that surface level. I'd love to get some like real hard-coded data on that.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of our pitch, right? I mean, it seems obvious that, the amount of time that someone would have to spend going down to, the local salad place or sandwich place, wait in line 20 minutes, eat something unhealthy, then crash an hour and a half later. We know surface level that that's the case. I mean, we don't have hard-coded data. I think that's something we'd really love to start to get. It's a good thing to pass off on to potential new clients.
Right.
But just surface level, I mean, if you take the average base salary of a client that we work with and you add up that time, not to mention what the fuel of that food is doing to their body, positive or negative, I think it's obvious that we have a pretty positive impact. Like a lot of the more immediate things that we can judge, more so than like, I think long term, we'd love to find out if we're like lowering healthcare costs and like all these things that are really tough to know right off the bat. What we do know immediately is like sort of employee happiness, which is, it sort of nestles under the bucket of employee wellness, but we do know that like when a Leanbox goes in, employee satisfaction goes up. So the ability to get something at 3:00 when someone's like in a rush and they don't have time to walk down the street, that impact is like immediate and measurable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine if I had, Chinese buffet for lunch, I would be feeling very differently than if I had something out of the Leanbox.
Yeah, it's
true.
To
take a nap afterwards.
It's definitely true. It's definitely true. So, I mean, that's not even counting like the time out of the office that takes to do that. But you're absolutely right. You have a big burger at lunch. Yeah, at 3:00, you're not going to be cranking out work, right? Yeah.
Are you available nationwide right now, or just select areas?
So we're hub and spoke. So we are just in New England area right now: Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Maine. Most of our clientele is in Massachusetts at this point. I'd say the rest of this sort of fiscal year, calendar year, is sort of wrapping up a lot of things in that model. So there's some technology that we're still building that we're really psyched about. There's some stuff in the food supply chain that we're still honing in on. All these things in the secondary services like coffee and kegerators of cold brew. All of these things are still being sort of like the finishing touches are being put on them. And then it's national expansion. So next year we're looking at new markets like scoping out Chicago, DC, Baltimore, New York. And that next year is all about sort of city over city expansion.
What have been some of the major changes you've made since launching?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one by far is the services that are outside of Leanbox's core. I mean, that's got to be. We never thought we would be in the hot coffee business. If you were to ask me 2 years ago whether or not we'd be in that business, I would have said no way. I didn't. Maybe it was more obvious now. Looking back on it, it should have been more obvious to us, but we just didn't see ourselves in that business. So I think for us, like having I'd say we have an advantage in that we don't come from this business. I was just talking to someone about this. And the fact that we don't come from 20 years of corporate food service background, like there's not a lot of like talk that goes on around here that's like, oh, it's never been done that way, so like we can't do that. Yeah. Or, you know, so anyway, I mean, I think by far the biggest change has been, you know, delivering fresh fruit and delivering hot coffee, like barista style experience into an office. I mean, all those things are. We partner up with Bevy, which is like a really cool local. You know, it's sort of like water cooler 2.0 or 3.0. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I call it like the soda stream for the office. So you can toggle over to sparkling water and lime mint and get a water out of a you know, tablet based system, which is really, really cool. But anyway, like none of those things were really in our ecosystem when we first plotted out the business model. You know, we really didn't think we were going to be in that space. So yeah, I got to say by far, it's sort of like the expansion of services and changing over what Leanbox is as an organization, which is sort of a shift from vending machine 2 or 3.0 to, you know, unattended retail and technology, and health meets corporate food service as a whole, was something that we didn't think was going to happen.
What has been the toughest part of growing Leanbox so far?
It's interesting. I mean, I guess my answer to that would be that we have to be a lot of companies in one. So what I mean by that is Leanbox is a food company. We're a sales and marketing organization. We're a brand. We're a distribution company. Like I get tired even saying all these things. We distribute all of our own stuff in refrigerated vans. We have our own warehouse. So we're a supply chain organization. We are a hardware company. We are a software company. A lot of this is related to the fact that like some of the stuff that if we could have outsourced our supply chain, for example, like we would do so. We would work with a third party, but the supply chain that we need just isn't there. Same goes with hardware, software. Like if there was innovation in a kiosk, like we would be okay with working with that and then developing client relationships. So I think probably the most difficult thing for us is to, you know, manage a lot of different companies within one. Like our tech company is basically its own company, right? That could be a company in and of itself. So, you know, one of our differentiators and sort of like moats and keys to market and IPO or IP is also one of the hardest things about our business.
So you've been in business now for 5 years, is it? For over 5 years?
Well, it's been an LLC for about 4.5 years.
Okay.
You know, the 5-year mark you discussed was probably about when my business partner and I like scribbled ideas on a napkin at a bar in the financial district. Yeah. LLC for about 4.5 years. You know, there was a lot of development. Then there was the restaurant. You know, Leanbox in its current form, honestly, it's still kind of a baby. Like, it's probably been about 2.5 tops years in which Leanbox has been in its current form. And really, just to even clarify that even more, about the past year to year and a half when we've been like cranking on getting it out to the world. So in a lot of ways, we're still very much a baby.
Is there anything that you would do differently if you were to start over?
Well, I wouldn't have started a restaurant. No, yeah. I mean, I think obviously, if I were to say no to that question, I would not have learned much along the way. I mean, I think I would have liked to have accelerated our learning process as to like, you know, the concept that we have today. It's very clear to me whether or not we will be a $1 billion company is completely unknown. It's clear to me that what we're doing could be a $1 billion company. Like that's very clear to me. 2 years ago, the space that we were playing in, like, I don't know, like maybe could have been a company that I would have been sharpening my resume, a couple weeks later. But I think, I would definitely, if I were to do it all over again, certainly would have developed the business so that it fit my skill set better early, which I had mentioned before. And I would just speed up the time with which it got us to where we are today. I think that probably would have been the best thing for us to do.
How has running your own company been different from what you expected it to be? That's
a good question. I think there's two things I would say to that. There's so many things I could say to that. I mean, the by far the number one most important thing, in my opinion, it's like the people you end up choosing to work with, right? So I have gained so much respect for mentors I have, people I know that have built amazing teams, because it's hard, right? It's hard building teams. We're lucky at Leanbox to have an amazing team here. And I know how hard it was to get there, to connect with folks and to put the right people in the right seats. And I think one of the things that's just interesting to me is just how important that process is. And because, without a good team, like you just can't, when you get beyond the sort of basement startup or garage startup, then it just becomes about putting the right people in the right seats. So I've gained a lot more respect for the people that I know who have done that time and time again. I guess other surprises. I mean, I think call this a surprise or a challenge, but I think like one of the things that's interesting to me is how many decisions you have to make that are related to whether or not you do what's been proven to be an excellent strategy or you disrupt, right? So like one of the things that's really interesting to me is like the best strategy for a startup, particularly in a business like ours, which is like kind of an old school business, is like we need to know that, we need to know in the supply chain when to adopt best strategies, best practices. We need to know when to say, yeah, but that only got them this far, so let's try this different strategy. That's been like an interesting thing, like knowing when those decisions should take place.
I want to move now into our rapid fire questions.
Ready when you are.
So you run a company focused around food.
Sure
so
do.
I'm interested in what your favorite restaurant is to get dinner.
Oh my God, it's so hard. I have so many. I'll just go, like, I'm going to go first thing that came on my mind, which is one of my favorite nights out is to go to Barbara Lynch's Drink. So it's to start downstairs at Drink to get a drink.
Uh-huh.
And then...
What's your drink of choice?
I always get like they do an on the rock. So they have like a giant block of ice that they chip out a rock. So I'll do like a bourbon or scotch on the rock, which is so cool. So I love starting down there and then going upstairs to Sportello. Cool, really, really cool pasta dishes. Kind of unique vibe. If you haven't been there, it's like it almost looks like a diner, but it's like a open kitchen. I don't know, for some reason that experience, I have so many favorite restaurants in Boston, but like that experience just like really stands out to me. Before we move on from that, I should definitely drop a line to Brewer's Fork in Charlestown is like where I live now, especially now that I have a baby and like we can take the stroller there. Brewer's Fork in Charlestown is like, I think one of the best new additions to Boston, particularly for brunch.
And where is Drink in Sportello?
Drink in Sportello is right in the Seaport,
right
next to Menton. Yeah, it's a great place.
Okay. What's your favorite item offered in the Leanbox?
Favorite item offered in the Leanbox? I'll probably go with Newgrounds Food.
Okay.
I think, the idea of like I'm a caffeine junkie. The idea of like eating an edible coffee bar, just the whole story behind it, everything about it's so cool. So I got to go Newgrounds Food. Like support the local.
What's another startup in Boston you're most excited about?
Definitely the two that come to mind, where I have good friends and I have so much respect for what they're doing over there. Hourly Nerd just took on another massive round of funding, and the space they're in is so cool. So Hourly Nerd would be one, and the other would be Drizzly. Just two companies that are just not only, they're in great spaces. They have amazing ownership and management. I just a lot of respect for both those guys.
What's something about you that most people don't know?
Oh man. I'm pretty open book, man. Here's a weird one. I got into squash, and not the food. I know this is a food focused podcast. I got into the sport of squash, which is so weird to me. Like, I didn't grow up like yuppie, like this. It's like a very boarding school sport. I had a good friend that was a general manager at Boston Racquet Club that like brought me in for like a game. Anyway, this was like when I was like 23, and I fell in love with the sport. So, I think the reason that's sort of like a peel behind the curtain is just like that sport is like not typical of me. Like I play lacrosse and football, and like I like, whatever. It's just not in my typical realm, but like I'm obsessed with the sport. I could do an hour-long podcast on squash.
You play awesome, a lot?
But yeah, I mean, I used to be before the baby, I was playing 4 or 5 nights a week. Wow. It's a cool sport, and I'm not one for like, I hate going out on a jog, so this like gets me my cardio.
Forces you to run.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's something that I still to this day. I mean, now I've been playing 6-7 years. I still find it to be like it's a kind of a weird hobby. So
awesome. Yeah. Do you have any favorite blogs or books?
Oh man, I'd say I actually consume fitting for this atmosphere. I consume a lot of my sort of education at this point through podcasts. So I pretty much like whenever I'm not doing anything that requires me on the phone, I usually have the headphones in. So like I love like HubSpot's podcast. Yeah. I love Freakonomics. I love like Adam Carolla if I'm looking to just like relax and like zone out while I'm cooking, whatever. I do a lot of podcasts. And then, books. I mean, I would say as it relates to startups, I think one of my favorite ones that I've read, two of the more obvious ones, I would say 0 to 1, Peter Thiel is really, really good. But I would say, by far my favorite one that I've read as of late, is The Hard Thing About Hard Things.
Love that book.
It's, oh my God, it's so good, right?
I just bought it for a friend because he was visiting and he was looking through it and he's like, oh wow, he's like, could I borrow this? This is like perfect for me right now. And I said, yeah. And he laughed and he forgot it. So I sent it to him. Yeah. It's a great book.
It's so, I mean, it's really practical. So it's not 30,000 foot view stuff. It's like
specific examples.
Yeah. Like, okay, like this is what you should be doing when you sit down with your employees for a review. It's like, it's so good. I think that was like super, super impactful for me.
What advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
So I would say, well, probably two things. One, I didn't start the entrepreneurial journey and I didn't get embedded in the Boston innovation community as early as I would have liked. So I was, 26, 27 before I started to like go out to startup events and join the 1 in 3 council for the mayor and like all these things that like have had such an impact on my life. I would have loved to have had a runway that was longer in that area. So I would have loved to have started that at, even 21, 22 years old. So I would definitely sort of shake myself on that. And then the other one that I'm still trying to tell myself and not soaking in is just like the sort of like enjoy the phase you're in now, right? So, there's things that I've always enjoyed every sort of turn that goes on in my life, but I think staying in that moment, like when you're 20, not worrying about being 21, and when you're 21, not worrying about being 25, like, I don't know, just every phase of life is really, really cool, really, really interesting. And I think just like soaking up, like just what's going on then and not always building towards something would be something that I'm still trying to tell myself that today. Like I think about that with Leanbox where it's like, okay, like I'm always thinking about like, what's the next thing? What's the next level of growth? But like, sometimes I have to like pinch myself and look around and be like, all right, like this is exactly what I wanted to do. Like this is when I get up in the morning, I'm psyched. Like I love what I'm doing. And like, I have to remind myself to be super happy about that. So I would tell that to my 20-year-old self, and I would say that to myself right now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I want to do something a little different today. I want to play a quick game.
Oh,
it's called the Startup Game.
Okay.
So it involves 3 things, really. So yeah, first person says a noun, the second person says another noun.
Okay.
That then becomes the name of the company. The third person then says what that company does.
This is so brilliant.
All right.
I
so
cannot.
We'll do like 3 or 4 of them.
Oh my God, this is really good.
All right.
Okay.
So I guess I'll start. The first noun will be flag.
Can.
Flag can. That's a tough one, man.
So good. This is brilliant, by the way.
Flag can. It's this new startup taking an innovative approach on recycling.
It is, yeah.
And what they
That's
do
true.
is they make country flags or any flag that you want out of recycled cans. So instead of out of cloths, it's just a bunch of cans on string or whatever to form the flag.
They definitely do. That's true.
Yeah.
I feel like this is something that you could be at, like, I won't name it like a specific event, but you could like go to someone and be like, "Oh, did you hear about Flag Can? They raised like a super awesome,
killing it right now.
Yeah, they're killing it right now."
Yeah.
I'm like, the person would be like, "Flag, of course, Flag
Everyone's
Can."
buying Flag Can.
Flag. I wish I had gotten in on Flag Can. All right, fantastic. All right. So wait, do I start this
So
one?
now
Right?
you go. Yep.
All right, I'm gonna go bicycle.
Door.
Bicycle door. Yeah. So bicycle door is it's the Uber for door repairs. I don't know if you've heard about this.
Okay. I haven't.
On demand door repairs. So I mean, you literally just log onto that app. A door repairman will literally show up. That you can track where they're coming. And you
The little bicycle on the screen.
Yeah, you can see the bike. That's why they do it. Yes, correct. Good point. They do this on bicycles, which makes them really efficient and quick. And the payment goes through there. It's very cool. They just raised their seed fund, I think, if I remember correctly.
Wow. I didn't realize that was a big market.
I mean, do you have any doors in your house?
I do.
All right. Well, there you go. Yeah.
They've had to get repaired too.
In the room we're in right now, there's 2 doors. Like, I mean, there's 2 of us. So
3 doors.
I mean, just think about it.
All right. Chair.
Boat.
Chair boat. This one's actually very cool. It's
Can't wait.
it's kind of like it's a cross between your standard desk chair
Yep.
and a jet ski.
I think I've heard about this.
Yeah, you've seen the YouTube videos?
I feel like I have.
Yeah.
Maybe I feel like I saw this.
Yeah, they're it's like a reclining jet ski chair.
Yes.
And but it comes in like a big bubble as
Yeah.
well over you. You can like open a window if you want because they go very fast.
Is there like, can I buy that now? Is that available as we speak, or do I have to get on like a
If you go
list
to what was the second noun you said? I can't remember. Chair boat, right?
Chair boat,
If you go to
chair
chairboat.com, you can order them.
Okay, done.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go pick up that URL so people actually give it away. Fantastic. I love that game. It's so good.
Okay, last one. One more.
Oh, we're gonna do another one. I
One
love
more.
it.
Book.
Tomahawk. Oh man, why did that just come out of it? Now I have to go.
Book Tomahawk.
Book Tomahawk. Book Tomahawk it's actually a directory, which I'm not. Have you heard of Book Tomahawk yet? Or
No, I thought it was a throwing device, but it's not.
no, it's not. It's it's a directory. I would equate it to you know what it is? It's the kayak of teepees. That's what it is. So you can go, like, if you wanted to stay in a teepee in Plymouth, for example, you can geo-target that area and find out where there's extra room in a teepee.
Right.
So, I mean, super useful, in my opinion. Traditionally, you'd have to, like, call each teepee individually, see if they have room. Mm-hmm. It's literally, it's the kayak for teepees.
For teepees.
Yeah, which is very cool.
Fantastic. A couple more questions here to close out. Where can people find out more about Leanbox?
Leanbox.com. Everything's right on there. Nice and simple. Leanbox.com.
All right. Where can people connect with you online?
Same thing, but you can find us. We're active on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you name it. Twitter's at EatLean, EATLEAN. And you can find all of our other callouts on leanbox.com.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you have any parting thoughts, advice, or suggestions for the audience?
I mean, call us if you need food stuff, I don't know. Yeah, parting advice. I don't know. I mean, hopefully, this is a small, tight-knit community. Hopefully I'll see you out in the Boston startup wild.
All right. Shea, thank you so much for coming on today. This has been a blast.
Thank you, man. I had fun.
Hello everyone, and today I have a special giveaway announcement to make. Over the next 4 weeks, I'll be giving away some of the favorite books from people I interview. In order to enter, just subscribe on iTunes and write a review. It's that simple. If you've already done both, then you are already entered to win. Otherwise, make sure to subscribe and write a review on iTunes to enter. I'll be choosing a winner every Sunday and reaching out to them to find out where to send the book. This week, the giveaway is for The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. It is one of my favorite books. Shea mentions it in this episode, and you'll be hearing it a lot as a lot of people I interview have mentioned this book as a favorite. So to win, make sure to subscribe and write a review on iTunes. Keep listening to more episodes as I sometimes will be giving away multiple books a week. Thanks, and I look forward to sharing these books with you. If you enjoyed this episode, please go and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes and write a review. By subscribing, you'll get all of my new episodes automatically fresh onto your podcast app. So make sure to do so. And it really helps me out in the rankings and with acquiring new listeners. Remember, all show notes can be found at startupbostonpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. And until next time, if you have any feedback, ideas for guests, or just want to say hi, you can reach me at nick@startupbostonpodcast.com. That's NIC@startupbostonpodcast.com. Cheers.